Our top story tonight is from the high-powered summit in Beijing that has launched an aggressive assault on the global dominance of the US dollar. Leaders of Russia and China have solidified a historic bilateral trade mechanism designed to bypass Western financial systems entirely. Now, this aggressive economic pivot is sending shockwaves through Washington and reshaping traditional alliance networks. Now, Xi Jinping and Donald Trump walked into Beijing's Great Hall of the People. Red carpets were rolled out, military bands played, cameras locked on every handshake. But behind the spectacle, China and Russia have been quietly pushing a move that could shake the dollar's global dominance. The images are loaded with symbolism. Xi Jinping stands waiting beneath giant red and gold state emblems. Vladimir Putin steps forward. The handshake is firm. And then comes the message. China and Russia are expanding bilateral trade further. And this time, the US dollar is being pushed further out of the picture. At their latest summit in Beijing, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin signed a fresh package of cooperation agreements covering trade, technology, logistics and energy. The two leaders declared that their partnership had entered a new stage. The key development is financial. Moscow and Beijing are practically all bilateral trade in their own national currencies. Predominantly, remember, the Chinese yuan and the Russian ruble. Essentially, no transactions in the US dollar in the Russia-China trade. And here the timing matters. Remember, the yuan is currently in its strongest position against the ruble in more than 3 years. And now, the Russian ruble is also soaring. It has increased 12% against the dollar since the 1st of April. This comes at a time when bilateral trade between China and Russia has crossed nearly $240 billion. Now, the US dollar is also on a 6-week high, though today it has marginally dipped. After Russia's attack on Ukraine in 2022, Western powers cut Moscow off from major parts of the global financial system, including the SWIFT payment network. In response, Russia turned to China and other non-Western partners to develop parallel systems that would allow trade to continue without using the dollar-dominated infrastructure. Now, Putin and Xi are moving closer to form an alliance to challenge the dollar-based global system. Remember, this is not just economics, it is geopolitical signaling. In Beijing, Xi and Putin repeatedly spoke about creating a multipolar world order. In fact, both leaders attacked what they called Western dominance as well and hegemonic policies. Listen in.
开展更高质量国际协作。
Engaging in higher quality international cooperation, reforming and improving global governance. The world today is far from peaceful. Unilateralism and hegemony pose grave dangers, and the world faces the risk of regressing to the law of the jungle.
Most important is that Russia and China are committed to an independent and sovereign foreign policy, are working together in close strategic cooperation and playing an important stabilizing role on the global stage. We are working together for peace and global prosperity.
Beyond Beijing, now the attention has shifted to BRICS as well. Remember, the grouping originally included Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. It has now expanded dramatically. New members include Egypt, Iran, the UAE, Ethiopia and Indonesia. Together, BRICS now presents roughly over 40% of the world's population and around 35% of the global GDP, measured by purchasing power parity. Its share in global energy production and commodity trade has been massive. Beijing and Moscow have been pushing for a BRICS currency. But remember, there is one big obstacle to any BRICS currency push, and that is India. New Delhi has made it clear that a common BRICS currency is not currently on its agenda. In fact, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has already stated that no decision has been taken to create a currency to rival the US dollar. Now, while Putin and Xi are working together toward de-dollarization, the US dollar is the undisputed anchor of the global financial system even today. Its dominance is a self-reinforcing cycle of trust, of safety, and network effects, making up the vast majority of central bank vaults and daily currency trading globally. About 60% of global forex reserves are in US dollars. Around 60% of cross-border loans and deposits are dollar-based. And most global oil trade is priced in dollars. Yet, the pressure has been building. Russia and China are now openly building parallel systems outside the Western financial architecture, and Washington is watching very closely. It is also making rapid moves. An Indian delegation is expected in the United States soon. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to visit India as well. Remember, as Washington intensifies its outreach toward New Delhi and the shifting global alignments. In Beijing, the smiles were diplomatic, but the signal was strategic. A slow financial power battle is now underway. As I talk about our next story, I want to start by showing you this video.
Palestine! Check it! Check it! Check it! טובה. עבודה טובה. ברוכים הבאים לישראל, אנחנו בעלי הבית. ככה צריך.
Well, the man whom you see repeatedly in the video is Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's national security minister and one of the most polarizing far-right figures of Israeli politics. And around him are Israeli Defense Forces personnel, hitting, forcing, and detaining a group of pro-Palestinian activists sailing on a flotilla with aid for Gaza. Subsequently, Israel announced that all foreign activists from the flotilla have been deported from the country. This 38-second video is now triggering massive outrage across the world, with world leaders condemning the brutality. Within hours, the footage exploded into a diplomatic crisis. The U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, called Ben-Gvir's actions as despicable. He also said that the flotilla was a stupid stunt, but Ben-Gvir betrayed the dignity of his nation. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said, and I quote him, "The protection of civilians and respect for human dignity must be upheld everywhere at all times." In fact, he also added that he had instructed his officials to summon the Israeli ambassador. UK's Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper said that the video showed totally disgraceful scenes, adding that she had sent a summon to the Israeli embassy to demand an urgent explanation. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said the images were unacceptable and demanded the release of all Italian citizens involved, along with an apology. Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong condemned Ben-Gvir as well, saying that the actions of Israeli authorities were degrading. Such angry reactions have been coming in even now from all parts of the world. The activists, remember, were part of what organizers called the Global Sumud Flotilla. More than 400 activists from 40 countries had taken part in this very flotilla. It set off from Turkey carrying food and other aid in what was the latest high-profile attempt to break the Israeli blockade of Gaza. Among them were doctors, there were students, human rights advocates, and political organizers. Israeli forces intercepted the vessel before they reached Gaza, and now Israel says that the blockade is a necessary security measure to prevent weapons and materials from reaching Hamas. But supporters of the flotilla say that this mission was humanitarian and it was symbolic. They say that it was a protest against what aid groups describe as catastrophic conditions in Gaza due to months of war. Human rights lawyers representing some activists alleged physical abuse, intimidation, stress positions, and degrading treatment during detention. Some women reportedly alleged harassment and forced removal of religious coverings as well. Israeli authorities dispute many of these claims and they maintain that security forces acted lawfully. But internationally, the optics have been devastating. This shocking video comes amid Israel being called out for alleged continued violations in its war against Hamas and Iran. The United States has not been able to convince Prime Minister Netanyahu to end the offensive. Even though Netanyahu clarified that Ben-Gvir's views are not that of Israel, remember he continues to face pressure from within his own coalition as well. Let's give you a context. Many Israelis are now asking whether Netanyahu will fire Ben-Gvir after this as the security minister of the country. The question is, can Netanyahu fire him? Because it's a tough task. You see, Benjamin Netanyahu is dependent on Ben-Gvir's party for support in the upcoming elections, as he did in the last one. In March 2021, Netanyahu was asked whether the far-right Otzma Yehudit party leader Itamar Ben-Gvir would be given a ministerial role in a coalition. He had rejected the idea at the moment. Netanyahu lost those elections. But when he did win the next one in November 2022, with the support of Ben-Gvir and others, he gave him key ministerial posts. Plus, Israel's parliament, the Knesset, has approved this week to dissolve itself, potentially bringing forward a few weeks the next national election, essentially a snap election for Benjamin Netanyahu. And amid all of this, opinion polls and surveys predict that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be losing the next election. Polls have since consistently shown Netanyahu's governing coalition falling far short of parliamentary majority. However, there's also a chance that the opposition parties will fail to form a coalition, leaving Netanyahu as the head of an interim government until the political stalemate is broken. So this entire controversy is more of a headache for Benjamin Netanyahu electorally, politically. The question now is, can Israel maintain broad Western support while some of its most visible leaders resort to violence and brutality on unarmed activists? All right, moving on now. Think of tourism, and Thailand is high up on our list for most tourists across the world. However, in a move that could impact foreign tourists, Bangkok has now rolled back its 60-day visa-free entry scheme for 93 countries, including India, the United States and the UK. Bangkok originally introduced this scheme in 2024 to boost tourism and spur growth in the economy that struggled to recover since the COVID-19 pandemic. So what changed now? Well, the Thai government has attributed this move to frequent incidents involving foreign tourists committing crimes such as shoplifting, overstaying and illegally operating businesses in tourism hotspots. This decision also assumes significance as Thailand's economy is heavily dependent on tourism, which accounts for nearly 20% of the country's GDP. However, reports suggest that foreign arrivals in Thailand have dropped by 3% this year as compared to last year. So how will the latest decision impact Indian tourists, impact you? As per the Thai government, visitors of 54 countries will be eligible for a 30-day visa exemption. While it hasn't specified the list of eligible countries, it did announce that entry rules for each country will revert to its original bilateral terms. And therefore, for Indian travelers, it is expected to mean a return to a 30-day visa-free arrangement as per the earlier bilateral agreement. In the last few years, Thailand has emerged as a top tourist destination for Indians owing to increased air connectivity and the focus on lifestyle and wellness travel. The numbers tell a story in itself. As per the Tourism Authority of Thailand, close to 400,000 Indian tourists visited the country in the first 2 months of 2026 alone. Last year, 2.48 million Indians visited Thailand, registering a growth of 16.8% over 2024. But some tourists downplayed the impact the latest decision would have on tourism in Thailand.
I think people love Thailand too much to be, they'll find a way to come back. And it's a thing of, I think they're kind of trying to reduce the numbers that are coming, but it won't, it's like the #1 tourist destination right now. Like so many people are coming to Thailand.